Welcome back to the Delaware Way. I'm Larry Menti. It's a hot topic across the country and in Delaware, the legalization of marijuana. Here to talk more about that is Ken Abraham, who is the president of Citizens for Criminal Justice. And I should point out that recently you hurt your leg and you were kind enough to still come in, so I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for having me, Larry. My pleasure.
Let's talk about, you are pro-legalization. You wrote a letter to the editor recently, and that's
correct.
what got our attention. Why?
I'm a member of the Speakers Bureau for LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, among other things. It's an international organization of cops, prosecutors, and many others, a couple 100,000, who see that drugs are bad, but the war on drugs is worse. The reason why, yeah, you know, I'm a lucky guy. I practiced law for about 10 years before I moved to Florida, went into business here in Delaware. 5 as a in you know, general terms, 5 as a prosecutor, and about 5 in private practice. When I practiced law, Larry, the criminal justice system worked well. And by that I mean justice almost always was the result. You know, you do the time, you do the crime, you do the time, a reasonable amount of time. Today, it's a total train wreck. Total train wreck. There's increasing awareness of it, but the war on drugs, you know what's, oh, by the way, haven't been up here in Murder Town for a number of months. Nice to get up to the big city. You don't look at that. Wilmington.
By the way, Wilmington will hate you for calling it Murder Town.
I understand that, and I understand all the.
And they hate ABC right now for calling it Murder Town.
I know. I'm aware of all the kerfuffle about it, but you know, that's blaming the messenger. You know what's causing the murders? The war on drugs. The war on drugs is the root cause of every problem with the criminal justice system. Think about this. Depending what study you read, 84% to 92% of all crime is drug related. Virtually all property crimes are drug related, mostly addicts stealing stuff or pawning stuff or writing bad checks to support their habit.
I'm going to just make a real quick time out.
Yes.
Because you're saying war on drugs.
Yes.
And your editorial was about legalization of marijuana.
It's a good
place
to start.
Are you talking about legalization of all drugs?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's not going to happen.
Not in my lifetime, but I predict that it will because it makes sense. Most people cringe, and my reaction was first initially, was the same. You tend to think, oh, we can't legalize the really, really dangerous stuff like heroin and cocaine. But the fact is, where it's been done, crime is down, addiction is down, arrests are down, costs are down, they're making money. Portugal. There's a whole country for it's 11. I have so many facts and figures in my head. Let's 11 or 13 years, all drugs decriminalized.
Let's figure out your argument, though, because there's so
working.
many people that are watching this right now that are cringing
I
because they
understand.
have loved ones that have died from addiction to heroin, and they would have done anything to keep that heroin out of their hands. And so you're saying that no matter what, they would have gotten their hands on heroin, right?
Absolutely. Look, come on, are you kidding me? It's everywhere. We have been doing this insane policy. It's the most cataclysmically, clearly failed policy and costly, clearly failed policy in American history. 40 years we've been doing it. Ratcheting it up, that's another problem. Tough on crime. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. We've proven that.
But is that the only argument, whether it works or not? Doesn't the government have a moral obligation to say, no, this is wrong?
The primary function of government is to protect its citizens. And we're doing a terrible job. We can protect it by legalizing, regulating, and taxing drugs. Let me put it to you this way.
Let me stop you for 1 second. What is a government that knowingly says it's okay to take something that will kill you?
Okay, there's that's a little faulty thinking in that. The government wouldn't say that. A parallel to legalizing, you need advertising. You'll never stop the demand, the supply, until you stop the demand. It's just supply and demand. As long as you can, you know, buy a kilo of Coke for $5 grand, come back and sell it for 60, you'll never stop it. How do you stop the demand? You stop the demand by treating the current, there are 2 classes of people with problems with drugs. Current addicts, you provide treatment, not prison, not warehousing them in prison with programs that don't work. And I know, as I told you before the show, I'm not proud of it, but what got me started on everything I'm doing now, I went from prosecutor to perpetrator. I lost everything to cocaine about 9 years ago, and I do mean everything. I went to prison. Saw what goes on in there. It's another horror story. So it's powerfully pernicious poison, and nobody should use it, that's for sure. Okay, so you treat the current addicts with a good treatment program, and advertising prevents people from starting. I'd like to think if I knew how cocaine works on your brain, I never would have touched it. What does an egg in a frying pan tell you? Nothing. What does just say no tell you? Nothing. I do little talks around the state on the dangers of drugs, what you should know, and part of it is how drugs work on the brain. The other part is a little bit of my story. It could happen to anybody. and advertising works. Look at cigarettes. So you combine the regulation with advertising. That will.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Everything you're saying makes sense. Everything you're saying, except legalizing it, to me makes sense, because the advertising makes sense. Treating the addict makes sense. Not sending as much to jails makes sense. Why can't you just do all that without legalizing it and saying that and making it more available?
Lots of reasons. You go to the whole criminal justice system. Even an arrest, you're tainted for life. You know, you got all kinds of problems, even if you're not convicted. Putting people in prison does no good. You can lose everything, go downhill really fast, going to prison for 3 months, 6 months, whatever, for drugs. It just makes no sense. And it's costing us over 55, depending what study you read, 55 to 80 billion dollars. This is your money, tax dollars a year wasted. We're warehousing the addicts in prison. They're not getting what they need. They're terrible reentry, not sufficient reentry. They come out and use again.
Would you have made yourself right without going to prison?
I did once before. You're talking to someone so smart. I've had 2 disasters with cocaine. Oh boy.
But okay, so you had it once.
I
I
went to a great treatment program, stayed clean for 17 years, and then, despite everything I had learned, I've learned a lot more now, screwed up again. When I came back to take care of Dad, with the pain, sorrow, and stress of his decline, I turned to drugs, and you know.
And then you went to prison.
Correct.
And then that cleaned you up.
I've been clean 9 years now, and you can't pay me enough. You never know.
But
Listen,
let me ask you something. Does that mean that worked?
What worked?
That cleaned you up? You were saying,
no.
You just said a moment ago that we shouldn't send people to prison, but yet that's what's made you clean. No,
that is not what made me clean. Okay, I was in the CREST program. There are 3 major prison programs, Key, CREST, and Green Tree. Let me tell you something. What goes on in the prisons, and what should go on, and what the law requires, and what actually goes on, makes the difference, makes the Grand Canyon look like a crack in the sidewalk. So I landed in the CREST program. Number one, I had the desire and determination to get clean. That's what counts. As they say with addicts, you can't help anyone until they're ready to help themselves. Well, I was ready. I knew I really, really screwed up. Great disgrace to myself, my family, friends, the whole 9 yards. So there's the CREST program. Just take one example. On paper, it's a good program. It makes sense. If you conscientiously work it, it might do you some good, and you might get clean. What actually goes on, it's a total 3-ring circus. You know, these companies provide the contract to DOC, so they get the $13 or $30 million contract for whatever it is. Then they come in, and there's no monitoring, no checking, no follow-up. I mean, most of the sessions, classes, were bull sessions. It's a total joke. Only because I took it seriously and worked it. That was part of what did keep me clean. Did I answer that question?
No, you did, and we're running out of time.
But most of the guys, they couldn't care less. They take the course, pass, and they get their certificate. That's all they care about.
But to start off, you would like to see marijuana legalized.
Yes. Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
We have 2 choices. Drugs, illicit drugs in this country, and by the way, some of the prescription ones are just as bad. It's over a $300 billion industry, second only to Walmart. We have 2 choices. We can do what we've been doing, leave it to drug kingpins, all the gangs and criminals and the whirlpool of crime sweeping around that, unregulated, no quality control, et cetera, enriching, thieves and robbers and you name it, causing massive crime wave related to it. Or that's what we've been doing. Or we can legalize it, regulate it, and tax it. Regulation simply means responsible people making responsible decisions. Which would you rather do?
I think there are other options, but we have to wrap up.
We've been doing
I'm going to wrap up with that.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming in. Believe me, you made your point. Ken Abraham is the president of the Citizens for Criminal Justice. When we come back, if you are feeling down this time of year, there may be a medical reason for that. We'll talk more about that when we come right back.
Mission. The Law Enforcement Action Partnership's mission is to unite and mobilize a voice of law enforcement in support of drug policy and criminal justice reforms that will make communities safer by focusing law enforcement resources on the greatest threats to public safety, promoting alternatives to arrest and incarceration, addressing the root causes of crime, and working toward healing police-community relations. Vision. The Law Enforcement Action Partnership envisions a world in which criminal justice and drug policies keep our communities safer. ending the war on drugs, and looking beyond the criminal justice system for a range of solutions to address society's ills will better protect human rights, reduce violence and addiction, and build public respect for and trust in law enforcement.